Business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Inspiration, motivation takes. Listen to the podcast. We're all about to talk about life. Our guests will share their life story. We want you to success in life and business. We're ready and we will start shortly. We're gonna talk about life. We're going to speak on business. You're gonna shine bright. We are going to witness. Business with a servant's heart. With hosts Steve Ramona and Ray. Inspiration, education talks. Listen to the podcast. Steve Ramona.
Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. I am so fired up to have you join us today. Got a really cool guest. I'm not going to get emotional right now, but there's a lot of stuff happening in this world. And one of these things, the topic we're going to talk about, is tough, but needs to be communicated and out there so we can help and support and be a servant's heart to people. We dedicate this podcast with that purpose of learning how to have a servant's heart with your work in your life. Because if you get to do it every day like I do, you're going to feel pretty darn good. You have something happen in your life, I go serve somebody, whatever happened before, I forget about, at least for a while. Also, too, our podcast is going to motivate you, inspire you, and educate you towards that servant's heart, business, and life. Those wonderful things and not so wonderful things that can happen to us, but having a little more information and knowledge and hope, game changer. Here's your call to action, audience. To think about how you're going to serve yourself and others today and what impact you create today. And I make that today word the big part of this sentence because we wait in serving, we wait on gratitude, we wait on answering that email that could make us a bunch of money. Just take action and do it today. Deal with it later because you can do that. That's the power of it. I want to thank my sponsor, Pantheon Alliance. Imagine joining a community of high-income entrepreneurs and business leaders who are creating a world-changing thought leader platform to impact and change the world. If you'd like to be part of this community, I'd love to get you all the information. Reach out to me. I have all my contact info, and I'll get you all that information. Impact and change, difference. Veterans and suicide. We hear it all the time, and my guest just put out a stat, 22 a day die by suicide. Sucks. It's not good. But my guest is so passionate about helping. Well, let's just bring him on because I'm excited to talk to him. Dr. Keith, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much. I was kind of wondering, I want to get part of that network that you talked about earlier. But you're right. The Veterans Administration published some statistics a couple of years back. On average, 22 veterans die by suicide each day. I could have been one of them. That's kind of why I'm here. I'm not one of them, is what got me here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, thank you for your service. I want to tell that in the audience. I'm sure some of you are doing the same. Just do it to the screen because the universe hears that. I talk to people, Keith. Can I call you Keith? Dr. Keith or Keith? What do you like?
Keith is fine. Most people call me Keith.
Okay.
My students call me Dr. K.
I like Dr. K. So Keith, you know, I talk to people and they're like, you got so many veterans on your podcast or people dealing with veterans. I don't know. I don't know anything about that. How do I communicate when I talk to a veteran that's going through something?
You listen. So one of the things that I'm learning more and more about is keeping quiet and helping people be comfortable with their own story. Because many, many times, especially men, it's challenging, one, to own it, and two, to communicate it. And so if I use myself as an example, you know, I'm diagnosed with PTSD. And for many, many years, I never saw it. You know, and I was even in the mental health field when I graduated college after I left the Corps, long, long time ago. So I'm familiar with the term, I'm familiar with the symptomology, but it was never clear. So I would deal with this, you know, had 5 suicide attempts, I deal with hallucinations or I deal with nightmares, never putting them in, you know, putting the pieces together. And so really rather after, during COVID and after COVID, friends, colleagues are seeing these things and then saying, Keith, you really need to kind of do some reflection. There's something going on here that I don't think you really recognize. And so it was challenging. I may cry here. And so, but last year, so as the time of this recording, last year was 2024. Don't usually date stuff, but I had to go into therapy. It came to a head and said, something's got to change.
I'm gonna bring up a tough subject question, and audience needs to hear this. So you tried 5 times to die by suicide. What was the trigger? And that's the wrong word. The impetus to go, okay, I need to get help, for people listening that might be going through this or have people that are.
For me, every attempt was, it's never a thing of I want to die. It's you don't want to live. And so there's the flip side of the coin. Life just gets really tough and you struggle with emptiness, lack of value, lack of purpose. You may not see anybody around you, even though you may be surrounded by family and friends, but you don't feel it, you don't see it. There's an emptiness. And so, now there's a bunch of, there's 988, there's the crisis hotline, there's, this service and that service, but truly, truly, somebody who struggles, especially men, because we have to suck it up and, go on. It's going to be really challenged to really understand what's going on. And even me, I never truly understood what was going on. It's just that when the life implodes, too many variables impact at the same time. You just want to give up. Many times I've cried in the closet. And so eventually, this last time was 2021. And what innately I said, I've got a daughter. So my daughter's now, she'll be 15. God help me. She'll be 15 in March. She'll be 15 next month as the time of this recording. So, 2021, 4 years ago, she's a young girl. And I couldn't enough, I've heard enough stories of the impact it has on families. I couldn't put her through that. And I am going to cry. I couldn't put her through that. Just the fear, the anger, the frustration of having your dad die by suicide. Um, I've heard I've heard family stories. And so that was enough for me to not do it. But I knew I needed help. I needed to reconnect with life and I needed to figure it out.
Yeah. And didn't want to live. You didn't want to die. I've not heard that phrase before. So thank you for sharing, which I'm going to put in my back pocket to know, because that's a powerful statement. It's a much different conversation if you go either way. And thank you very much. God bless you, man. It's great. I want to get past the suicide, but when it comes to this, and people are talking to people and they're fearing that, oh my God, it's Joanne I'm talking to. I think she might do that. What do you think the next steps from the other side of that fence going, what do I do?
So I want to get the name right. Christy Kristen. She is one of the spearheads behind the 988 crisis hotline that was made legal by President Trump in his first term. People are not so much afraid of asking the question, but the response they're going to get from that question. And so they don't really know how to deal with what somebody may say. And so that's really where the fear is. If you can kind of get past that, don't think about, well, I'm going to put this thought in, my friend's head. They're already there. What they need to know is that there's somebody other than themselves that's really going to be there to listen. And if somebody that they know and trust is there to listen, give them that opportunity. Give them the opportunity to talk.
So well said. I love it. Let's get some we had to talk about that. And that's, like I said before the show, this is an important topic because it's everywhere. Mental health's everywhere. PTSD, and so it's everywhere.
Mhm.
So we established that you really could help, and here's some great tips. I'm excited about your hike. Talk about this hike, what you're doing. I know I'm 63. I probably could try to do it, but I won't. But
I was about to say, come on.
maybe let's talk more. Tell us about the hike.
Okay, so to give context, 5 suicide attempts, 1 heart attack. And so really the 5th suicide attempt, 2021, the heart attack a year later. So I typically say, and I could do this. I'm allowed to say this. I give the Grim Reaper a finger because he keeps on coming after me and I keep on sidestepping him. But because of the heart attack, everything had to change about my life because what I was doing wasn't winning. And even though I like to exercise, I'd still eat a whole heck of a lot. And so I would eat just about it. And I'm a small guy. Look at me. I'm a tiny guy. Um, I would eat whatever, typically fried food or whatever it was. My body was telling me that's not the way to go about this. So I literally had to relearn how to eat, what to eat. But for some reason, it needed to be more than that because again, everything was life-changing at this point. And if death is really hunting me, I was going to do something before I die. And so that just turned into, well, I walk every day, 4, 5, 6 miles. It's part of my exercise routine. I live here in Virginia, and I know about the Appalachian Trail. I've been out to Grandfather Mountain. I've been out to Shenandoah. So I'm familiar with the concept of hiking the trail in sections. But I said, let's go for it. And to give context to this, I've got my book behind me, Walking the Path. And the crux of the story, it's contextual. It's a leadership book, but it's really about personal development. And the fable that's inside the book is about these group of young men and women in order to escape their reality. They live in a village, it's surrounded by mountains. They have to hike, they have to cross over the mountain. I said, let's do it for real. Let's put it into practice. Let's do it for real. So since probably early part of 23, late part of 2022, I have been training. So for the past 2 years, and I got 1 more year, because it's a through hike. It's a 2,193-mile trek from Springer Mountain, Georgia, to Katahdin, or Katahdin is what I've heard it's pronounced, but I'm Italian. I can't always talk right. So Katahdin, Maine. It's 2,193 miles. I'm going to do it in 4 months. And so it's part of my overall mission to kind of bring awareness to the issues that veterans face. And if they can learn to be purposeful and intentional about their lives, their PTSD symptoms, they'll always be there, but they may not attempt suicide because they have found something to keep them alive. And even if it's just getting up and knowing that they've got to perform one more time, they've got one more mission. And if you've ever been in the service, when it's all about the mission, it's all about stepping up and getting things done. But this time it's purposeful. It's about what you're able to do and what you're putting into your life. And so I've been training for it. And so this is where it gets a little bit weird because this is just me. I get up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I hike 12 miles a day, Monday through Friday. I push that to 20 miles. My best 1 day trip, and I'm here in Virginia, so I go to First Landing State Park. I get it, it's sea level, but I've been up to Grandfather, so I'm adjusted to the elevation. I've pushed it to 23.8 miles in 8.5 hours in a single day. So this is a single day hike. Only breaking for lunch. And so my body's ready, my mind is ready. I'm ready. I mean, I could do it, but I want to raise money. At the very least, I need some money to get up and over the mountain. So I'm trying to raise $20,000 just to support me. But anything beyond that, goes towards the podcast, TV show. And then I want to open up a nonprofit to kind of add further value to support veterans who struggle with this the stuff, and I'll just call it that. And so it's really kind of the start of a bigger project, but at the very least, I got to get up and over that mountain.
You're a crazy SOB, first of all, which I
I am.
love. I say that with all love and heart behind that,
And I
which is
felt it
great.
too.
Yeah, good. Audience, here's what I'm going to do. I don't like to, it's not, I don't like to do it. I'm going to do something special. I'm going to donate to this. So anybody that does that and mentions it to me, we'll figure out something. I'll take care of you somehow, somewhere. I don't know what that is. Just what he's doing should be able to give you the incentive to do that. So I'm going to do that. We'll get the information put in the show notes so you can do that. It's a meaningful cause.
Are you going to join me?
He asked me to join him. Well, if he's 2 years away and I've lost my 40 pounds, I'm in. But we'll talk more about that. So I'll think about joining. I know I'm going to join financially, but we'll talk more. And by the way, if anybody wants to join you, can they?
So you don't have to do the whole thing. And so there's something called section hikers. And so a section hiker is basically, pulling a piece out and say, whatever that is, 5 miles, 10 miles. And I've known people to have done that. Locally, we've got here I live in what's called the Tidewater area or the Hampton Roads area, and there's actually a Tidewater Appalachian Trail Club, and that can be found online. So there are people who do the whole thing. There are people who do sections. And so if you want to just join me for a day or a couple miles, I'm going to be doing a daily vlog because one of my intentions is to honor a fallen veteran each day. And so I'm going to dedicate a day's walk. A day's walk would be 20 miles. And so I'm going to dedicate 20 miles for 4 months to a fallen veteran. It doesn't have to have been fallen by suicide or anything like that. But if you know somebody, veteran or service member who has died in service or has died as a veteran, and you want to honor that individual, please contact me. I want to honor that individual every day for 120 days.
I'm going to do that with my dad, who I lost in 17. Thank you. He was in the Air Force, and I will reach out. We'll talk more about that. So do that. I'm going to ride in the car to get him lunch. Maybe not walking. I'm half kidding. But if you want to walk, we'll get the information so you can connect. What's the dates on this? When are you
April
start?
1st, April 1st, 2026. So April,
Okay.
May, June, July. If I get done earlier, I will still, when I come back to the office, I will still honor up until the 120 days. So I do want to honor 120 veterans. It just happens to be that space. And so I didn't just pick that number out of the air. April, May, June, and July.
Sweet. I love it. You mentioned the book, so let's dive into it, coming to close to the end here. Walking the Path is so beautiful because we all walk a path. Talk about the inspiration for the book and what we're going to get when we read it.
So really quick, it was actually designed as a leadership training manual. I was actually co-authoring a book with a colleague of mine. Long story short, he pulls out, and so I had to pull all my content back. And so I was kind of doing the academics of leadership based on some of the stuff that he had written. This was 2022. So before the heart attack, after the suicide attempt, and I'm kind of realigning my life. And so this story just comes to me. This story about this young man, name is John, lives with and so I took off technology. I wanted to kind of remove the space of technology and just kind of put them in this very maybe 1800s America, farming, hunting, all this kind of stuff. This group of people, community lives in this valley surrounded by mountains. He doesn't fit in. Kind of been my story my whole life. Don't fit in. So where do you fit in? he needed to find out. So upon his 18th birthday, him and a group of his friends, basically four people plus his mentor. So I leave it as a cliffhanger. The kids are up and over, up at the mountain. It stops there. I want to write a part two if I can get enough interest in the book. There's a whole lot of stuff in terms of personal development that really, once you start reading and you kind of attach yourself to each of the characters in the book, you can learn a whole lot about who you are and kind of what you want to accomplish in life.
And last but not least, you're starting a TV show, which I'm excited we're partners together. Talk about what the TV show, which is going to also be a podcast on YouTube and so many other platforms. What's your goal? What's that going to look like? And do you have a name?
Trail to Transformation is, so I actually started Trail to Transformation with a colleague of mine because the issue of veterans, benefits, the struggles we face, it's ever present. And so earlier, I would say, back in 2024, we kind of started these conversations. I've took over the podcast and I was introduced to, can I do a shout out, Laura Cross?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
She had me on her show, E360 TV, and what's her name? Kelly Reinhart. So I was on both of her TV shows. And so Trail to Transformation will be a TV show, repurpose as a podcast, and then of course repurpose on my playlist on my YouTube channel, which is Walking the Path. So anywhere you see this bald head, you can find me everywhere.
And when's the launch date?
I'm not quite sure yet. My goal is to do April 1st this year, 2024, and kind of push the momentum to April 1st, 2026. And so the goal is to, I'm doing a weekly TV show. So the goal is to kind of build momentum, but really have those in-depth conversations around veterans issues, not always having to be around mental health issues, but the things that veterans face. Sometimes just transitioning back into civilian life is challenging enough. So we've had to have those conversations. We have to have the conversations around how to access the benefits that are available to us and all of the struggles that we face. And so the conversations have started, the conversations need to continue.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Let's end with a fun note here. So I like to do this to get to know you a little bit more. So I've got a reservation at a restaurant for you, table of 4 in Virginia, and you're going to sit in one of the chairs, obviously. But the other 3 empty chairs, who would you want to invite, dead or alive, to be there to chat with you? And what food would you like to order?
Wow, that's wide open.
It is, isn't it?
Wow. Do most people say, Jesus? Because, we
It's
got to
leader of
get
the
some,
pack.
we got to get some insight in here.
Yes.
Wow, I've never been asked that question. So to be quite honest, and if I can get a little deep here, and the conversation is without judgment, yeah? Because that's kind of
Absolutely.
the theme of your
No
your
judgment.
show.
Yep.
I don't have a really, and I'm just going to be quite honest, I don't have a really good relationship with my mom or dad. My dad's dead, and I haven't talked with my mom in 40 years, well, 20 years.
Yeah.
I would like to pull them into the conversation. Reopen the connection with both of them. Because I'm now mature enough to have those conversations where I wasn't before. And I realize I'm pulling my dad in from the afterlife. And so we really need to figure out what's going. And he was an alcoholic. And
Mhm.
so he died, 15 years ago. And so I've not had a conversation with him easily since I was a teenager. So to kind of get to know who they are and why they did what they did and how they tried to figure out life and failed. Because I'm figuring out life at 50, 55, and I think I'm succeeding now. At least I'm
Thanks a lot.
figuring stuff out
Yeah.
that they didn't know.
Yeah. That's fantastic. It says a lot about you. Beautiful way. I love it. So what are we eating? Because I'm going to bring a chair up. I'm going to meet your parents and
Well,
Jesus. What are we
well,
eating?
my mama's maiden name is Anzi, and so I claim some Italian heritage. Even though you see McNally on the Zoom call, that's my dad's name, but I claim Italian. So a good fettuccine dinner would be really
Oh,
cool.
I really have to have a chair then. I'm all in. Oh my God, that's beautiful. It'll be a cheat day for me because I don't need much pasta anymore. But that'll make it a cheat because it'd be well worth it with you and Jesus there.
I appreciate
Amen to
that.
that. And meeting your
Well, you can
parents.
meet my mom and dad too.
Yeah, absolutely. And get to know a little bit more about Keith. You are an absolute blessing. You are doing great things because you're inspired. I'm glad you're here to do all the things you are, and you'll be here for many years to do that. I support you. Audience, donate to his hike, buy the book, walk the path, learn to do that. But also, too, people are like, I'd love to reach out to Keith. How can they connect with you?
Um, Best way is LinkedIn. That is where my active channel is. I have multiple emails, but if you really want to chat, and you could always find me most places. So YouTube, Dr. Keith McNally, Dr. Keith McNally. But at the very least, Keith McNally or Keith J. McNally on LinkedIn, whatever that handle is. Again,
See,
look where the bald head.
can't miss that face and that bald head, which is, it looks good, to be honest with you.
I appreciate that.
And we'll put all that information in the show notes. Thanks again, Keith.
Thank you.
I've got a new friend and a new servant heart, which I can add millions of those to my life. It'll be beautiful. And audience, here's your call to action at the end. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. A lot of people talk about that, and it's great. There's no judgment here, but here's why I want you to. You're a veteran listening to Keith, and you have a veteran friend that needs help. Share this podcast. It's truly a gift of so many things. They start listening to Dr. Keith and learn something, and it's done, and you changed their life. You impacted their life. And maybe the journey goes deeper and they reach out to Dr. Keith, and Dr. Keith helps them, joins the hike, reads his book, whatever that looks like. You've given a gift to your friend, family member, whoever it may be, because that's what servant hearts do. Use podcasts, whether it's mine or others. Use Keith's podcast when he starts going his TV show as gifts, because today was truly a gift for every veteran, PTSD person. That's the wrong way to say people that are dealing with PTSD or dealing with dying by suicide. You might just really save a life today by sharing that gift. With that being said, me and Keith want to thank you all so much for watching or listening to this podcast. And we'll see you all in the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. Have a great day, everyone.